let us remember that we are in the holy presence of God. I hope everyone's been staying cool this week. It certainly has been a hot one with this record-breaking heat. And with the scorching sun, it reminds me of this upcoming Sunday's gospel, probably one of the most famous parables that Jesus has. He shares this with his disciples in Matthew chapter 13. A farmer went out to sow in his field, and as he sowed and scattered his seed, some seed fell upon the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground where it had little soil, and it sprang up at once because the soil was not deep. And when the sun rose, it was scorched, and it withered for lack of roots. Some seed fell among the thorns, and the thorns grew and choked it. But some seed fell in rich soil, and it produced fruit, 100 or 60 or 30-fold. Whoever has ears ought to hear. This parable talks about faith, and it recognizes the fact that we don't necessarily have control over where God scatters his seeds of faith, but we do have control over the soil. We have control of how receptive the soil of our hearts, the soils of our lives can be in receiving God's word and receiving the blessing and the graces of faith. And so there's three ways that we can kind of prepare the soils of our lives to receive God's grace. The first is gratitude. To take a moment and to be thankful for the blessings in our lives. See, when we're thankful, it actually softens our hearts. It softens the ground and allows for the ground to be broken, and so that the seed can come in, so that it can receive the water and receive the nourishment that it needs in order to grow. So maybe at some point this weekend, take a moment to think of the blessings and to be grateful for the gifts that God has given us in our lives. The second tip is generosity. When we're generous, it allows for our lives, allows for God's love to take root in our lives as we share that love with others. It allows for that ground that's broken from gratitude. It allows for those roots of the plants to kind of go into the soil. So again, maybe some point this weekend, take a moment to be generous to someone else in your life. It could be something as simple as letting someone go ahead of you in the grocery store. Or maybe being generous by helping out in some way around the house. So have gratitude. Be generous. And then the third tip is to listen. At the end of the passage, Jesus says, those who have ears ought to hear. We need to listen. We need to stop and be still. When we stop and we're still and we take that time to listen, it acknowledges the fact that even though the farmer may be out in the field planting the seed, preparing the ground, watering the field, scattering fertilizer, it's ultimately God that allows for the growth to take place. That he's the one that blesses the fruits of our labor. So maybe at some point this weekend, to just take those 5 minutes to listen to God, to be grateful for the blessings, and to let God inspire us in how we can be generous. Because when we remember that we are in the holy presence of God, it allows for us to live Jesus in our hearts forever.